What up, what up, what up, family? This is the Brothers in Influence podcast where we stand to encourage, inspire, and add value to black men in the areas of life, leadership, and community. We consist of five brothers discussing relevant topics with candor and care. Thank you for tuning in. Let's go. Yeah. Let's get going. I'm excited. Yes, this is Ian Williams, your purpose coach. You can find me on Twitter at Son of the King 02 and on Instagram at Ian Coaches. Man, we got a couple of guys here. They seem to be okay. But honestly, they are men of excellence. They are men of character, integrity. They make me want to be better. I'm thankful that they are in my life, and I'm privileged to create a space where they can introduce themselves. Without further ado, whichever of my brothers wants to introduce themselves first, ladies and gentlemen.
When you were saying all that stuff, I was waiting on the other person to pop up. I'm like, who are we talking about? But once again, Shante Price on all social media networks. I am your leadership and financial coach.
Yo.
Lorenzo.
What's up? Wagwan brethren. Lorenzo Daughtry Chambers, winwithlorenzo.com. I help people win. I help people figure it out. I'm a coach and a consultant. However I can help you, just DM me. Yeah.
Yes, sir. And as we get into things, man, we definitely want to check in, but we also want to give a shout out to our brother Sherrod, who is traveling. We pray that he is on the road safe and makes it home with his beautiful family. He is not going to make it to tonight. However, we still go on. The show goes on. And so, how's everybody doing?
I'm doing good. I'm in loving life, living life, enjoying life. I'm grateful. I was my grandfather has this saying that he got from a rapper. It says he's overwhelmingly grateful and profoundly undeserving and overwhelmingly grateful. Right? That's how I feel. I'm profoundly undeserving and overwhelmingly grateful at everything that's happening, just family-wise, business-wise. I have a saying that says the Lord is kind. He's kind, because if we got everything that we deserved, we would not be where we are. The Lord is kind.
Come on, preacher.
So doing good, man. I'm just asking, in that space.
Awesome. I'm great. Doing good. Excited about the future of just us as fathers and husbands and in our businesses, and then the endeavors that we're perfectly in pursuit of.
Mm-hmm.
As we're growing as individuals and as a brotherhood. So yeah, I just at the beginning of the year, before I even met you guys, what I'm saying, I was in great expectation of what God had in store for me, and He has yet to disappoint me this year. So I'm doing great.
Amen, bro. Perfectly in pursuit. What a segue. Yeah, man. It feels good, man. To be aligned, to be living in alignment with what we feel we're called to do, right?
Yeah.
And because what's really amazing about that, and I mean, as we kind of get into it, like even when we're tested, or when we're stretched, or when we're in uncomfortable spaces, or our faith is tested, this is like, the joy of the Lord is your strength, right?
Sure.
It's hard to have joy when you're not in alignment. But when you're in alignment, joy is almost abundant.
Yes, that's that. I think when you talk about joy, and I think those two contrasting things, joy and happiness, because I believe joy is something that uh, emanates from inside, whereas happiness can be based on a situation or things that are going on. So I could be unhappy and still have this sense of joy uh, about what may be going on in my life, and where I am in my life. So
Mm,
when you said that joy, you know what I'm saying? Because I think we too often we take things that transpire in our lives, and we just see it as this is what it is. So if a loved one died, we get stuck there and not realizing that yes, we can still grieve. Yes, we can ask why. We can do all those things and yet be somewhere in life, and be in a joyous place, be in a fulfilled place, even in the midst of situations.
wow, man, that's profound. That's profound. Profound.
If I could add to that, and I agree, when you talk about joy and counting it all joy, I also go, it's in James 1 and 2. That's what I was looking up. If y'all ever see me like looking on screens, y'all know, but the audience, I'm always looking stuff up and taking notes. But it says, consider it joy, my brothers and sisters, when excuse me, whenever you face trials of any kind, because you know that the testing of your faith produces perseverance. And Shate, when you were sharing, that's what pops out at me also, is that there's joy to be experienced in the moment. But then even when we're going through situations and we're going through circumstances, that is actually a moment for joy to show up. It's a very paradoxical thing as we talk about perfectly in pursuit. It's not saying that everything is going to be perfect. It's
Hmm.
not. It's going to say that everything is going to be good or everything is going to be bad. But there's something about enjoying the journey of the pursuit that's standing out for me, even as we're opening up this conversation around joy.
Yeah. Amen. Amen. So, man, listen, I'm doing great. I'm glad to be here. Another episode of Brothers and Influence podcast, episode 19. We got Brother Barry Rich with us. Shout out to Brother Barry Rich. He's been supporting us for several weeks now, several episodes. We appreciate you, brother. We definitely gonna have you on. We just need to link up. I know that we've kind of been going back and forth, but we're gonna make it happen. Straight from Jamaica, we're gonna have our brother Barry Rich on with us.
Wow. Yes,
Absolutely, yes,
I.
sir.
I didn't even know when I just felt in my spirit. I'm a low key Rasta, y'all. I'm the cat side of the bag.
Oh,
I on a serious note, when I was in school, I was traveled a lot, and when I was in Senegal in particular. Um, anyway, I'm that's going a whole nother way. But so my heart and my spirit connects with the islands. That's what I would say, and I'll leave it
mm.
there and keep moving. Amen.
Hey man, here's
Amen.
this brother's response right here.
Yes, I bless.
What's up?
Yes, yes, yes. Much respect.
Yeah, man. So I think that we could definitely talk about many things. As we're in pursuit of purpose. We're not perfect, and we're not trying to be. We're not trying to present ourselves as perfect or as if we have it all figured out. We are very much on a journey, um, and I think the picture that I would want to paint is that it's possible for you to join us on this journey, but not only join us, but actually uh, thrive from this place, right? Um, I'm historically a very cautious person, so it was very easy for me to work for someone else and to uh, operate within the context of a traditional 9 to 5 My paycheck showed up on time, and it depended on someone else. And now I'm in a space where I'm working for myself, and I deliver my own paychecks, and whether that's on time or not, there's certain things that may or may not be under my control, but but because I'm aligning with my purpose. I'm living out my values. I have joy amidst the seemingly inconsistency, um, or lack of what could seem like stability, right? And it allows me, just like I was sharing last week of how God provided for us throughout the year, throughout the pandemic. Um, after I'm before and after I moved out of that corporate space, but finding success and learning. It was a lot of learning, but God has called in this journey. God has called me to trust, and so I'm just thankful. I'm thankful and I'm grateful. And it's funny because you know I've got a lot of old school church in me, uh, and it's like people think, oh, you forgot where you came from. No, I ain't forgot where I came from. I got a lot of old school church, and I came across a song I used to sing when I was a kid called "Yet Will I Trust in Him" by Men Standard. I don't know, you guys know that one?
Yeah.
Oh, you okay? Lorenzo knows. What about you, Shante? Oh, you muted, bro.
Go ahead and sing it for us, brother. Go ahead.
Oh man.
Go ahead, hit that note.
Oh man. See, I was gonna sing it, but then you decided to like put the spotlight on me. So yeah, man. So we're perfect. We're perfectly in pursuit, and we have a greater sense of what our why is. You know, you talk like, how important is our why in this journey, fellas?
Man, that your why is so important, and I think for those that like, well, what is your why? Your why is the reason why. Literally, right? Why are you doing what you're doing? What wakes you up in the morning? What gets you into bed when you don't want to, right? What keeps you going when you don't want to? Why are you doing what you're doing? What is at the base? What is sourcing your activity? That your why is. And your why is important because when things are shaky, when things are transient, when you're not clear, your why helps you get clear, right? When you have to persevere through a situation, your why helps you persevere. When you have to push past, when you're trying to get to the goal, your why in those night seasons and those times where it's not fun, your why is what moves you forward. And so your why separates you from almost being a master to being an amateur, right? Your why is the gap in between.
That's good.
Yeah.
I think we've called our why, as well as our values. Really, the why and our values are like our compass, and I think you kind of alluded to that. When you're going through and things are shaky or things are not clear, your why and your values give you direction. And if you've practiced following that direction all along, then you're going to be in a better position to not be shaken
Yeah,
when things get hard. Go ahead, Shante.
absolutely. You said it. You read my mind. Because though, and because that's what I was going to say though. That the value component is so important because if I ask a person, I said, so what's your why? Why are you doing what you're doing, or why do you want to do what you desire to do? And they tell me, well, I want to own my own clothing line. Okay, so then I'm going to ask them, because that's a task before them to accomplish. So then I want to ask them, so what are your values around that? Because if you don't have or if you don't have concrete values, and I think we spoke about this a week or so ago, it's easy to compromise those things. But when you have concrete values, you know what they are and where you stand with them on that journey. If you're, I've used the analogy before of success is at the top of the stairs. So if I'm walking up the stairs and on that journey up the stairs, one of those steps, something transpires that says, guess what? I can skip these 30 steps the wrong way and get to the so-called uh, success, the success at the top of the steps. Or if your values dictate that you're going to do it in a certain way, you're not going to take the bait, what I would say. So I think it's very important that you know your values
Mm-hmm.
and that you know them to the point that any situation they reflect in any situation around you. So like if I say now, when I was back 20 something years ago, when I was on the street selling drugs, one of my values was money. Another one was women. Them was my value because I wanted these things and clothes. I wanted these things. And so guess what? There, I'm gonna do what I have to do to get them. I lied, I cheated, all those things because that's what my values were. Even though at the same time I knew I shouldn't be doing those things. You see what I'm saying? But guess
Mm.
what? The idea that I had of how I could get what I wanted was in the wrong place. So you have to know your why, and your why has to be built on top of the values that you have in order to get where you want to be, I would say, in a successful way. Not in a way that's gonna tarnish you or your brand or your family or whatever else it might be. You have to know the why is stacked on top of the values that you have to get to where you're going.
Wow. Our brother Barry Rich chimed in. He says that your why must be stronger than your obstacle.
Yeah, that's interesting, brother Barry. I was just about to kind of piggyback on Shantae, what you were saying around the why having to be strong enough. And what I think we're getting now is that your why actually can be distinguished from your core values. And hearing you share, Shantae, this is what I'm getting. Because you're a young man, here you are, you do have core values, right? But sometimes, depending on what your why is, your why will have you acting incongruently with your core values. Just discovering this in the comment. What do I
Mm.
mean? My core values are X, Y, and Z, but my why is so strong in the opposite direction that I will do the opposite behavior. And so what really stands out for me is that question of, well, why are you doing this? And I'm seeing where these layers have to get pulled back. And we don't have to do it now, but like if one would ask themselves, if I would have asked Shantae right now, why were you doing that? Why am I doing this? One answer is gonna come out. And then if you say, but no, really, why are you doing this? Another answer is gonna come out. And if you say, is that really why you're doing this? Another answer is going to come out until you keep going 7 or 8 times deep and asking yourself and getting yourself out of the BS of why you say you're doing something. Because there's a good reason and then there's a real reason. Okay.
Wow.
And a lot of us go for the good reason and never talk about what the real reason is because of what's palatable. So in the discovery of what is your why, because in every situation you have a why, whether it's about your family, about your job, about your business, about your even what time the decisions you make day to day, what time you get up, what time you go to sleep, how hard you work or not, you are doing all of these things for a reason. And so we all have to ask ourselves, like, why am I doing this? Oh, because I'm trying to make a little money. But is money really the reason? Why are you doing this? Because I care about how my community sees me. I don't want to be looked at as a bum. Why are you doing this? Because peer pressure says, and I feel bad about myself when I don't have these things. Okay, so why are you doing this? Right? And you unpack, it's like an onion that begins to be unpacked until we could finally be real with ourselves. That's what's standing out at me at this moment as we're talking. That's a powerful thing, Shantae. Like, we know when we're not doing the right thing, but yet and still sometimes we'll still do it. We have to start getting real with ourselves, because sometimes the why will be so powerful to do a negative thing that if we're not clear about it, we'll just end up doing it because we're not clear. We have not distinguished. For example, a lot of stuff that people do come out of trauma. Okay, I'm pause here, right? So the why of why we're doing something is because we want the money, cars, and clothes. Just right. That's money, power, respect. The locks. It's the key to life, Little Kim. Right? Money, power, respect. We say we want money, power, respect, but really, it's a trauma that's lingering in the back end. That is the driving force. But until we distinguish the trauma, we can't disappear it. And so we're stuck in this cycle. So what I'm really trying to anchor here, I think, for myself and for others, is that exercise of going 7 levels deep. Like, ask yourself why 7 times. Why am I doing this? You'll get one answer. Then the second time, why am I doing this? All the way until you get to the end. When you get to the end, that's probably your real answer.
Yeah. Yes, as Ian tends to say, we need to let that sit for a minute. Let
that breathe.
Yeah, let it breathe, man. That was awesome. And I think, go ahead, Ian.
Go ahead, bro. No, go ahead.
The thing is that is so awesome that, and I think you were the one time we got together and I was telling the guys I had been listening to some of our podcasts again. I was pointing out who everybody was. And I think I was saying you are the clarifier or enhancer because you do it so well. You know what I'm saying? And the type of conversation I like to call those type of conversations the treasure hunting conversation. Because if you're looking for treasure, once you find a piece of gold or something, you tend to not stop looking. And that's how that conversation has to be. You have to keep asking those questions until you get to the root of the issue. Because oftentimes we're still only, and you mentioned it, we're dealing with surface things. You might have asked yourself that 10 times, but it's still surface. It's still surface. And you have to go get deep as you can. When we was talking about mental health awareness month, that's why that's what psychologists do. That's what type of things they do. They help you get to those deeper questions just by listening for most of the part, right? So yeah, that was awesome, bro.
Yeah, man, and y'all know me. I'm the nerdy one of the group, so I gotta. It's just interesting because I actually have been studying what Lorenzo really described, and it's the clinical term for this is cognitive dissonance. It's when you have two driving thoughts that contradict each other. And then when he was describing your why being stronger than your values, and even though your values are contrary to whatever it is you're doing and why you want to do it, it's cognitive dissonance.
Wow.
Internal conflict. And what's so interesting about it is the way that we are wired. Human beings are wired. We often will result, even when we know that where we're doing is wrong, we will figure out a way to justify it just to make ourselves feel better and cope. Because if we didn't, the conflict would eat us up. So even when you do feel bad, like I know that there have been times in my life where I've done that. Like I've been in that lane. Like I've done things that were completely contrary to my why, to my sense of purpose, to who I feel that I or believe I am. And I can think back in hindsight's 2020, right? Lorenzo said, "What's more palatable?" Like I have to make that, because that's, you know what I'm saying. You create that dish, you got to eat it. So, but you know what I'm saying? You gonna season that boy up, though, slather it in hot sauce, make it edible,
A big pile of doo doo.
so you can continue, so you can keep moving. You know what I'm saying? Because otherwise, you'd be completely destroyed under the pressure of the fact that you really just betrayed yourself. You really were disloyal to you. And that comes in, and that happens in many shapes and forms. I mean, I can speak for people pleasers, right? People that go along and they will comply outwardly but resent inwardly. And what does that normally turn into, right? That can only last so long. It will only last so long before that person either completely breaks down or they blow up. It's a breakdown or a blow up. It's going to be an extreme response. It's just going to pile up and pile up. Comply. On the inside, you're like, I don't want to do this. You know what I'm saying? Like,
Wow.
This is now something I didn't ask for. Yeah.
That is so
Yeah,
powerful. People that comply outwardly but resent inwardly.
Mm-hmm.
I'm because it speaks to so many of us in certain areas. And in some of the teaching that I do in another environment, we talk a lot about submission being an attitude of the heart. That people can do the same action, but depending upon where their heart position is as it relates to the action, they will have two different outcomes, or the energy around what they produce will be different. And that's what you're hitting on the head. The person who complies willfully and gladfully because they're aligned, and the person who complies resentfully. And so I guess the word around that is, if you're complying resentfully anyway, it's not going to bear fruit. And so there's a piece of integrity to the self that needs to be had. But that sentence blew me away.
Yeah. And I think that's interesting. Yeah, because it's definitely not gonna bear fruit for you. So many of us, we produce results for everybody else but ourselves.
exactly.
And when I think of leadership, the leader, a leader is responsible because they have their part. The part that they play is really getting to know the person and what direction, what motivates them, what do they need or what do they want, what are their desires, what do they really want to achieve, and what are they good at. But oftentimes, there are leaders that will look to steamroll a person, like, just give me what I want. And then there's the other person who just lays down, but is like, this is the last thing I want to do. And their relationship is just set. They setting each other up for failure.
Or even leaders that lead you and are so persuasive and personality driven that they will convince you to do the thing you don't want to do, under the guise of telling you it's good for you, or et cetera, et cetera. There are a lot of, particularly in the religious space, but in all leadership spaces, where people will coerce you. There's a leader who just steamrolls you, but then there's the leader who manipulates you, thinking it's a good thing for you, and they being nice to you, and they get you to do the thing you don't want to do. Both of those are equally bad.
Yeah.
One is more insidious and will have you wondering, like, why is this? Because you clearly said you didn't want to do something, and this person just convinced you to do it.
Wow.
All right.
Yeah.
And see, listen, this is where Brothers in Influence, everything we've talked about the last 19 episodes, comes full circle. Because that's really why it's important to be self-aware.
Yes.
Don't just leave it up to the person you're following to figure out what motivates you and how to talk to you. You got to know for yourself. I can say I spent a lot of years just not knowing what those answers were.
Yeah, I think. Oh, go ahead. I'm sorry.
Go ahead.
I think too is part of that. it's because it does jump back to values too, because if you know your values, as we said, and you can hold tight to them, then at that point, because it doesn't matter if you're the leader or not. If you're trying to get me to compromise my values, and at that point, we have to have a conversation, right?
Yeah.
Whether it's the job, whether it's the pastor, whether it's the whoever, and that goes back to that thing of once again, it gets back to your why, because a lot of time the why is connected to the job, so therefore you'll easily compromise the values, and then as you keep compromising, Ian said it several times before, basically next thing you know, you figure out you don't even have them anymore. They're
Mm,
just not there because you've compromised so much. And one of the words that I came across that uh relating to me, like Ian was talking about, we go along to get along, is came across a word deselfing, and basically it deals with in a relationship when you're neglecting you on behalf of the relationship, or you're losing
Mm,
yourself on behalf of the relationship.
that's powerful.
And it's powerful. When I synced it, it's just keep telling you guys, I keep coming across words that just burden lifts off me, because I realized that this was me at a time, or this was me, or this how it was. And when I'm able, and when anybody's able to get a word, just like we talk about emotion and people expressing themselves, sometimes you don't know how, because you don't know the word. You don't know the word that would cause you to be able to, how are you feeling? It's like, I don't know. I'm feeling some type of way. I just don't know what it is. And so yeah, we have to know ourselves to be able, I tell people all the time, you have to do what you have to do so you can do what you want to do.
that's good. That's so good. Yeah. So, yeah, like I said, this comes full circle. Self awareness, knowing your values, figuring out your why. Um, and I was just thinking, like, as I'm processing this conversation, I remember times when I was younger, and I would get in trouble, and it seemed like maybe I probably did something that my mom felt was out of character. She'd be like, "Who are you?" And I'd be like, "Man, I'm not sure how to answer. I mean, I'm your child. I'm a I'm a big brother. I mean, but I think that's just like one of those things where, if you are aware in this area, this is an area that you can lead, right? You can help someone else figure out what their values are, what their why is, uh, and age is not a limit, right? Like, if just imagine, fellas, if we were teenagers and someone helped us figure out what our values are. It's not what they tell us our values are, but like what our values are, right? Or were, because in addition, they have an opportunity to evolve and grow as we grow, mature. We come in and out of seasons, right? So we offer that flexibility as well, or that adaptability, right? Because before I was a husband, before I was a father, family, um, immediate family may not have been in my top five, give or take, right? They were important, but like now I'm a father and I'm a husband, especially being a father, like that's top two, second to only my faith. You know what I'm saying? So, um, but yeah, so but when I was a teenager, like what would it have looked like for me to really get a sense of my values? What a what a time, if any, did I need a compass navigating my teenage years? You know what I'm saying?
And the and
'Cause-
the bad part was everyone was trying to tell us what it was.
yeah,
And if you can take 10 kids from anywhere, and it's everything is going to be different. because we're individuals. I tell people all the time, you can't live up to someone else's expectation. And the reason you can't is because you're an individual. We've seen the stories where parents trying to live out their sports fantasy through their kids. They're playing baseball or basketball, and they're taking them to all the games, and come to find out that ain't what the kid want to do.
Yeah.
Not that the kid don't like it, but it's just not their passion. And we do that to our children, and we need to be able to take time. Kids have values just as well. We're talking about grown-ups have values. They can't articulate them, or they don't clearly know them, but if we begin to have those type of conversations, kids are very intelligent. I'll be watching some of the cartoons my daughter be watching, and be like, they really teaching something here. I'm thinking she's just watching a cartoon. When she first started talking and referencing different stuff, you're like, where's she getting this stuff from? Look at some of the stuff she's watching. She's learning. We ride down the street, and any of the construction equipment, she know what it is. She know what name it is. It's a crane. It's a backhoe. It's a this. She knows all that stuff. And so, but I think that's something we have to be conscious of with our kids, instead of just thinking they're just kids. We, between the ages of 2 to 4 or 5, they say they're sponges. We need to take advantage of those things, and not just let them, like my daughter, first thing she want to do, get up in the morning, is grab her tablet. She know when she want that tablet, what you watching? ABC Mouse. You ain't watching YouTube and all. Even though she's learning on those things, I want her to be able to take advantage of these things now to prepare her for when she starts going to school and things like that. And so that's our responsibility as parents, or as family members, if we have younger cousins or what have you, to be able to help them develop those characteristics so they can know who they are because of who they are, not because of who daddy is or uncle is or my cousin. Because you can look up to somebody, and there's nothing wrong with a kid looking up, but that doesn't make that person's values theirs.
Right. That's true. Yeah, man, and I think that's a responsibility that's often missed. We underestimate how smart our kids are. We underestimate what they're capable of grasping. I mean, honestly, they're gonna learn so much from watching us, more so than what we're telling them. And I was actually I took my son out for I think the fourth time I'd say. He's learning how to ride a bike, and he hadn't ridden in a while. He was actually he had gotten a bigger bike for Christmas from his grandmother, and he was a little intimidated. He's like, no, he was intimidated. So when it came up in recent conversation, he was like, Dad, you know what? He's cautious like me. It's funny, these little traits you can pick up if you pay attention. He's like, Dad, I think I need elbow pads and knee pads in order for me to ride my bike. And I was like, what? I said, well, I'm like, son, once you really get this, I'm gonna remind you, because you're just gonna be having so much, like, this is one of the funnest things when you really ride your bike. It's like, I don't think you really need that. I don't think you really need that, is what I told him. But they said, but we can look at it. And he said, Dad, I'm scared. I said, I understand. I understand that you're afraid. He said, well, maybe I'll wait until I'm not afraid anymore. I said, oh, well, there's all sorts of things that are going to scare you, but you need to do it anyway. And I told him what someone encouraged me with when I stepped into entrepreneurship. It's funny how these lessons can transcend, right? I said, sometimes, son, we just need to do it afraid. Sometimes we need to do it afraid. And I really left it at that. I wasn't sure. He's a processor, so he'll internalize and think about it. And so he sat quiet for a little bit, and he said, Dad, you know what? I think I want to go out and try to ride my bike. But I was so proud because, yeah, man, I didn't, I could have pressured him and I could have shamed him. You know what I'm saying? I come from in my lineage and a lot of black folks' lineage, we quick to jump on you like, oh man, you a punk, you soft, you scared. Nah, I said, I understand that you're afraid, and it's not about pretending you're not afraid or faking it till you make it. Sometimes we just got to do things when we're afraid. And a few minutes later, he said, Dad, I think I want to try ride my bike. And he said, you know what else, Dad? He said, I'm going to do my best. Blew my mind, boy.
Wow, what a moment. Oh my goodness. Let's give that some respect. It's powerful.
Yeah, man. So, I mean, he's a little, it's like when those things, because when you have these relationships, right? When you're married, or even when you have children, it's like a mirror that's reflected back at you, right? And working in ministry has a very similar effect as well. It's like when I would minister, whether I was preaching or teaching Bible study, whatever the case is, usually I just felt like I'm ministering to people, but God had to minister the same message to me first. And what some folks say is like, family is your first ministry. You got to be able to, you got to pour into them. Just that conversation, I believe, was ministry. If he can internalize that idea at 5 years old, I pray and that I continue to demonstrate the principle, and two, it would carry him through some of the hard things that he's going to have to face in the future.
Man, you encouraged me, because my daughter had one of the same situations just recently. Because I bought her the bike. She has a bike, but it's small. Because she's getting tall, so it's really too small for her. So I brought her a bigger bike, and she was riding and enjoying it. But she went to turn too quick. She failed, so she will not get on it.
Yeah.
And she hold on. Okay.
She like, you talking about me.
she like, give it away. I don't want. She told me she don't want the bike. Yep. I told her I'm gonna give it away. She like, okay. So yeah, so you most definitely encouraged me on that one, man. Because when you was talking, I'm laughing. I'm like, yeah, because this little girl, she like, I don't want it no more. Right. And she got back on it for a second afterward, and she telling her mama, I don't want that bike. He can give it away and all. I'm cracking up, man.
Yeah, man.
Kid. Yeah.
Man, yeah, but it's a part of the journey, right? And how blessed will our children be, staying in the vein of it, right? How blessed will now your son be, Ian, because his father has opened up these questions for him, right? And it is indicative. I believe humanity as a whole is going through a shift. Humanity, if you will, is going through an upgrade in its technology, not like these computers and things. That's one kind of technology, but just in the makeup of what it means to be human in the earth. And so when I hear that story, that's the kind of technology, and technology is really just a tool, right? You've now given your son technology around language that he can use to liberate himself and others. And so I think even from that perspective, as we look at the future, like, so many people don't see positive of what is getting ready to manifest in the future. But I think those of us who are parents and who are tapped in, we can see it because we have kids, and we know that these kids are special. We know that these kids are different. We know that if we give these kids the right tools, they're gonna far surpass. It's not even going to be a question, like, of what our children will do, and the children of this generation, because they're engaged in these kinds of things, right? We as the older guys, we are the ones that have to do this work. But what we're trying to do is create an environment where kids can grow up where things like this is just second nature. And that's what's really standing out to me.
Yeah, man. I mean, we want the next generation to be better off, right? We want it. with each generation, we can be healthier. We can, emotionally, mentally, spiritually. Um, we we're not in the business of passing on generational curses. Like, there's been enough of that, and not to say that not to, there may be some things that my son will conquer that I couldn't. But while I'm here, I'm perfectly in pursuit. You know what I'm saying? I'm perfectly in pursuit. I ain't got it all figured out, but I'm doing my best. I'm trying. Whenever I say that, my mentor, he's got 3 or 4 boys. They're much older. They're older than me. I haven't really spent a lot of time around them, but my mentor, he tells the story of his oldest son, and his oldest son came down with a terminal illness when he was when he was like in his early preteen, like when he was a preteen. Say he's a preteen. For the sake of inaccuracy, I can't remember exactly how old he was, but he was young. He was a child. Okay, and he came down with a terminal illness. And now my mentor, he's a man of faith. He's probably one of the most disciplined men that I've ever met in my life. Like, my guy, he's an older guy, and when we say leaders are learners, like he's committed to lifelong learning. I think I've talked about how it won't be strange to see him with the iMac, throwing together a presentation for a corporate board in 10 minutes. Like, he's sharp, he's super sharp. But his oldest son came down with terminal illness when he was young, and he describes him, because I never met him. I never met his son. He describes him as a very joyous person. So they had a family sit down, and they, with their other children and him, and they told him, like, the doctor's only giving you so many years to live, and they expected this heavy weight, because it was heavy on him and his wife, and he said his son jumped up and said, "Okay, all right, well, let's go to dinner. Let's have dinner, whatever." Like, he just, it didn't phase him. And so as the years went on, that same attitude, like, he kept that same attitude, that same spirit. Even as his body began to break down, his faculties started to falter. And, even though he was only diagnosed with a few years to live, he lived until he was 30. He lived until he was 30. Not only that, being in a situation like that, people will tell you, "Oh, he's not going to be able to do this." Like, when you hear, I think that, when we see it on TV, "Oh, your child's got a terminal illness. They're not going to be able to walk. They're not going to be able to have a normal life. They're not going to be able to feed themselves." There's going to be this list of things. Well, this is a real life situation where they got that list. And it was nothing but expected. So his faculties began to break down. Not only did my man live till 30, which was way past his diagnosed time frame, he got married. He had children. He was just that strong of a personality. His spirit was so strong. But the point is that, when his father, my mentor, had to go see his son on his deathbed, and there's so many more stories there in between. But he told his dad, his dad asked him, "Are you all right with the Lord?" Just in case at the end, it got him twisted, bent out of shape, because he knew he was going at that point. And he said, "Yeah, I'm good. I'm good, Dad." And he said, "Dad, as far as, when I'm gone, I just want to be remembered as a man who tried." Bro. In spite of it all, man, I'm tearing up just thinking about it. Like, life, most people would have given up on life. Never would have considered getting married or caring, having children. He did it all. Lived 15, almost 20 years longer than what the doctor said. And he said, "I just want to be known as a man that tried."
That's awesome.
And so, I want to harness even a tenth of that spirit and say that I just want to be known as a man that tried. I fell short. I fall short. I'm not perfect, uh, but by the grace of God, I'm really forgiven and I'm free. And with that, and what I choose to do with that freedom is to try to be the best father I can be, try to be the best husband I can be, try to be aligned with my purpose as much as possible while I'm here. And so that's what we're talking about, man. It's perfectly in pursuit. It doesn't mean that everything is perfect at all times. It doesn't mean that the circumstances are everything's happy go lucky. It doesn't mean I always make the right decisions. Doesn't mean the consequences of my actions don't weigh me down. But I just want to be a man. I want to be known as a man that tried. And I want to encourage any other brother that's connected to the Brothers and Influence podcast that it's not about being perfect. Throw one leg over the side of the bed and get up in the morning. Every day, the dew, what the scripture say in Psalms, the dew in the morning. God's grace is like the dew in the morning. I know it's a paraphrase, but the spirit of it's there. It's renewed every morning. Yeah, man. Not,
Yeah,
make the day your masterpiece. Just give it a shot.
exactly. The and part of that is with that story is uh, it's what was what, and like you're saying, there's a lot of other stuff, but at that point in that young man's life, this kid, it's about what had been spoken into his life, and that's kind of like what we're talking about at the same time, because I'm pretty sure if it would be a different situation those different 15 years if he didn't have who his father was in his life like he
Mm,
was up to that point,
mm-hmm.
right? Because it's harder to start on that journey when you get bad news than when you're already there and you start on that journey. And I think stories like that are so impactful because it's about intention, being intentional, and that's how we have to be with our life. We have to be more intentional with our lives.
Yeah.
What do you want? What do you want to be? How do you want to live? You have to be intentional. Not getting up every day and saying this is just another day.
Right.
This is just another week. It's another month. I can't tell you the time before I really got serious, all the times in prison that the months went by, the years went by, and I had this idea about what I wanted to do, but the days, the weeks, the months just kept passing until I got to a point where what it's like that defining moment is, guess what, if I don't do something different now, I'm gonna be the same person up until the end of this sentence, and I'm gonna be the same person when I get out of this place.
Mm,
And
that's great.
so, and even though I had been doing things, I had been doing good things and better things and staying out of trouble, but my values and my heart wasn't in the spot, in the place where I was in it wholeheartedly, where I was really intentional, saying that, guess what, I'm not doing this no more. This is the first time I'm in prison. This is the last time I'm in prison, right?
Mm,
And I just had to get intentional about what that looks like. You
yeah.
know what that looks like. It looks like the people I'm going to be around in prison. Because guess what, people don't realize most of the stuff you can get on the street, you can get in the prison, except for you can't leave. The sex is there, the drugs is there, the whatever movie you want, the movie that's stuff that's coming out on the street, people have them in there. The stuff is there, right? But what you gonna do to get those things? You see what I'm saying? And that and
Hmm.
that that's back to that situation of, guess what? Are you gonna do the things you've always done? What got you to this place? Or are you gonna do something different?
Mm.
And so I just heard a lot of intentionality in the life of that story. Had to be intentional because they said it was going to end here. You have to be intentional to get past that point.
Yeah.
Right. And then continue to leave. And then know of the possibility and still say, I'm going to love. I'm going to marry. I'm going to have children. Right.
Mm-hmm.
He had to be intentional and I'm pretty sure he was a man of faith also, because guess what? You have to have some faith to be able to walk through that valley.
Yeah. Absolutely. Yeah, man. You know, something I've learned about this journey is that feelings aren't your friend. Like if you're driven by your feelings, then you're not gonna get very far. You're not gonna get very far in the direction you want to go. Now, feelings have a purpose, right? But when we talk about being perfectly in pursuit, when we talk about being intentional, let me be honest. When it comes to our feelings, we ain't gonna feel like being intentional, right? For example, when I'm successful at getting up and exercising, I'm probably feel like hitting the snooze button. But if I'm driven by my principles, which are my values, if I'm driven by my values, like what's most important? I say my faith and my family. All right. Why am I working out? So that I can be healthy for my family. Right. So I can be healthy enough to live out my faith. Then that'll help drive me to get out of bed. But if I'm caught up in how I feel, of course, I'm not going to feel like. I mean, especially now, I don't know how it feels, but out here in the Midwest, when it's cool outside in the morning and the bed is warm, those be the hardest days, boy. You be like, oh man, that's perfectly insulated up under here. But but if I get caught up in my feeling, I'll stay right there in that bed until I got to get up, until some obligation pulls me out and I got to get up. But if I'm driven by my principles, I can make it out of the bed. I can not only can I make it out of the bed, but I can be consistent. I can develop consistency. I can develop discipline. And discipline is always going to be better than motivation. And motivation is just a feeling. So as we wrap, fellas, final thoughts.
Selah.
Pause.
Well, listen, thank you for tuning in to the Brothers in Influence podcast, where we stand to encourage, inspire, and add value to Black men in the areas of life, leadership, and community. We hope you got some value out of our time together today. Thank you for tuning in. We'll be back next week on Monday, 6:15. Holla at your boy.
Holla.